We have been conditioned to repress, project, and punish half of our nature and half of the nature of reality. I'm not going to pretend I know exactly how this happened or why this happened. It's a long and complicated history, but I do have some really hard stances that it happened and a few reasons as to why. And these are based off of personal experience and external observations of the world around me. Many months ago, I had a dream that I didn't fully understand at the time, but the dream was that my main spirit homie, who is represented, he told me he was represented by both an angel and a demon. I originally knew him as a demon. He told me he was represented by an angel as well. And in this dream, he was standing over watching, and there was this bookstore that had, like, it was like there was a new, you know, when something new comes out and at like a bookstore, like a new book comes out, and there will be just a shelf full of that book like being promoted, right? So there was a bookshelf at this bookstore of this new book being promoted, and the book in my dream just said Lucifer on it. But I understood it in my dream to mean the representation of the devil. And at the time I was like, is this referring to the introduction of like theistic Satanism? I don't know. But what happened in the dream is that my main spirit homie was standing over, like, and the vibe was like he's watching humanity and watching for humanity's reaction. Like, how are they going to react to this information? Like, observing to see, okay, so this information is coming out, and I'm not clear on how the information, I feel like they don't want me to know how the information started. I feel like it's human corruption. I don't feel like it's something that would have come from the divine. But it was like he was standing watching humanity's reaction to the information. And this guy picks it up in my dream, and he looks at it and he starts to read it, and he gets like really enraged and he gets empowered, and it's like he has something to fight for now. Like, now I have something to fight for. Yeah, let's fight this war, okay? That's kind of the vibe it was. And then the reaction on my main spirit homie's face, like the vibe was like very much, well, that was unexpected and sad. Like, that's how I interpreted it. Like, oh, I didn't expect them to react that way. And I have just, as I've been thinking about this concept a lot, I just realized that the book in the dream was meant to represent the introduction of the idea of the devil, because that is a concept that, from my understanding, is an invention that came with Christianity. Like, it's not something, it didn't come with the beginning of Christianity either. There's a long, complicated history with Christianity. There was a lot of human corruption put into the book and stuff like that. It was from my understanding, the concept of the devil is a human invention. Anyway, a human interpretation, but I think invention. I'm not going to get into that stuff. So I realized that this dream was about, the book was representing the introduction of the concept of the devil. And I realized that the part about it that was unexpected and that was sad was the fact that the man in my dream who was reading the book was so quick to resonate. And so I knew at the time that I had the dream, I was like, they didn't expect, like, what it was showing was, oh, we didn't expect people to resonate with this. And I just realized the thing they didn't expect people to resonate with that was sad was how immediately easy it was to completely pull a part of yourself that is inherent to the nature of reality out of you, and to look at it as if it's something that is not a part of you, and to shame it and to be angry at it and to project it onto others and to, you know, do all these things. Like, so you know, duality, dark and light, we all have it within us, right? It's everywhere in the universe. It's just a part of reality. And so the dream was like kind of telling me that the introduction of the concept of the devil, of evil, of demons, of a good side and an evil side, and the fact that people resonated with it immediately and immediately were like, yeah, we gotta fight the bad side, we gotta fight the bad side. The thing that was sad and unexpected is how quickly people were able to pull out that part of themselves and be like, yeah, you are evil, you are bad, and try to cast it out, try to cast out their demons, right? And, you know, I'm not an expert on the history of this stuff. I only know that there's a few main core principles in the history of this stuff that is not commonly talked about, common knowledge you can find pretty easily. I'm not an expert in the history, but what I do know is that, you know, this concept is some sort of human invention that wasn't always there. And it has plagued very many facets of our reality since then. It is my understanding that the suppression of your natural dark side and the natural dark side of the world around you is what leads to violent, destructive, harmful things. Suppressing it rather than working with it is what leads to all of the things that disgust us that we call evil. And as I'm thinking about it, I feel as though there is a possibility that part of the concept, like part of the separation, was maybe to point it out, like, this is a separate aspect. And let's take a look at this aspect. We need to start looking at this side of reality. We need to start observing this side of reality. And maybe that got turned into this side of reality bad. Cast it out, shun it, get rid of it, fight it, instead of observe it, look at it. And these ideas are ideas that have been reinforced to me, not only by things I was told and things that I've personally experienced, but by things that other people, information other people have shared. So, for example, recently I watched this Bashar video. I'm going to put it up here. And Bashar literally talks about what I was told, okay? Like I said, my main spirit homie, I originally knew him as a demon. He told me he had the name of an angel, and then I found it in old apocryphal texts, okay? I found something alleging that, or like insinuating that that was true, there was truth to that, okay? That was told to me a while, like probably close to a year ago. And in this Bashar video, he talks about how, you know, it's called The True Nature of Angels and Demons or whatever. And he talks about how angels and demons are the same thing. It's the same thing. He says it is the first reflection of the source magic thing, God, whatever, that permeates everything. It is the first reflection of that. So I think that we would also refer to them as the gods. It's the first big chunk reflecting the source of everything, right? So angels and demons are the first chunk. And like I said, I also think we would call them the gods of this source being, okay? And he says in this video that the angel is the demon. It's their polarizing sides. He says that, you know, the angel version of them is the light side and the demon version of them is the dark side. And in this video, Bashar goes on to talk about how the angel version and the demon version of these big chunks are playing with polarity. They are, you know, they're going back and forth, like playing with polarity and creating neutrality, neutralizing the situation. For myself, I have found this to be the case when doing a lot of shadow work. I have found that ignoring my shadow, ignoring my dark side, shaming my dark side, has caused me to act out and project my issues onto others, whereas acknowledging it and working with it and playing with it has caused me to be able to naturally handle situations that previously would have overwhelmed me. Before, when I was refusing to acknowledge the inherent dark side within myself and the world around me, I was so easily overstimulated. I was so easy to find excuses to why I can't do things, or why I'm better at things, why other people are wrong, why I'm right, why this is wrong, why that's wrong. Like, I was so easy to find excuses. I was so easy to get angry. I was so easy to project my issues, find any excuse to blame it on something else, to blame it on an external adversary, right? And working with it, playing with the polarity, like Bashar talks about, has made it so that I am able to, when there's like a situation, half the time I don't even honestly think about it, but there are times where I'm like triggered and I play with it a little bit, and then I end up neutralizing the situation. And it really takes it to a point where I can, and this is how I like explain it, you just start to naturally be able to handle things that previously would have overstimulated you so much that you would have acted in ways that you weren't proud of, and then you would have probably made excuses for that too. It's a common situation for a lot of people, and it's not to say that you never again get triggered, that you never again have emotions. It's just to say that being willing to work with them instead of run from them does, in my experience, bring you to a place of being able to like neutralize the situation and being able to like play with it rather than run from it, right? Learn rather than run from it. And I do believe that today, this concept of the devil, of an external adversary, has seeped its way into so much of our culture because it has seeped its way into our subconscious. It has seeped its way into politics. It has seeped its way into, interpersonal issues. It has seeped its way into so much of media and culture and everything to, call it the devil or not call it the devil. This idea that there is an external adversary, there is some evil to fight, rather than playing with that within yourself and being able to then work with it better in the reality around you. The change starts from within, always. And some examples of this are ways that if you repress your dark side, your shadow, it will end up projecting in a more chaotic way. And these are examples of like feelings, but if you start to watch yourself and start to watch other people interacting in certain situations, you'll be able to pick them out in a lot of situations that are very conflictual. You'll start to be like, oh, okay. So some examples that I think are very, one that's super on the nose is if you are repressing and shaming and punishing, or a combination, the concept of the feeling of material insecurity. So if you're repressing your feeling of scarcity, if one is repressing a feeling of material insecurity and scarcity, they won't acknowledge it, they won't play with it, they won't look at it. Oftentimes what happens is they become greedy. They become hard pressed to get more and more and more and more and more. And that's like the most direct on the nose example I could think of. But other things that I've noticed is, repressing a fear of the unknown or a confusion of the unknown, or an aversion to the unknown can lead to people repressing, bigoted thoughts. And that can lead to people finding excuses for why they have those thoughts, which can lead to people spreading hate because they feel shame over the fact that they have an aversion to something that they don't understand, but they repress their shame because they don't want to admit, they won't admit that they have that, and they will end up spreading hate because they have to find an excuse, right? That's something I've noticed. And then the last one that I thought of, which I have personally experienced quite often myself, like I'm constant, it's something that like was bred into me long before my critical mind developed. So it's like deeply, deeply, deeply ingrained into me. So it's like something that I'm actively working out all the time is people pleasing. And this aversion to this fear of, it's like partially a fear of abandonment, partially a fear of conflict, a fear of people getting angry with you, a fear of like having any sort of conflict, like a fear of conflict. Okay, right? This repressing this fear of creating negative feelings towards you or just in the environment. That often has led me to either have emotional outbursts because I'm like bottling, and then eventually you have an emotional outburst, or this is a common one, and I've read this in books from psychologists, and it has been my experience. If you're a chronic people pleaser and you repress it rather than work with it, it can lead you to pick up manipulative behaviors, and like a lot of manipulative behaviors, and it's like emotionally or anticipating the emotional needs and desires of everyone around you, but it can quickly turn into manipulative behaviors. It can also turn into self-destructive behaviors. So it's like repressing those things rather than working with them and understanding them. And not everything about like nature of reality is dual, is polarizing. There's, a dark side and a light side, and there's nothing inherently wrong with the dark, unknown, scary, uncomfortable, confusing, but it's like repressing it is what turns it into something that is harmful and destructive rather than acknowledging it and working with it. So if anybody remembers Doreen Virtue and how she freaked out and fled to Christianity because she said, it's all demons, everyone be afraid. I don't think Doreen Virtue was wrong. I don't think she was lying. I think she did find out that what she was working with was also demons. I think that she was given an opportunity to integrate and work with the dark side of reality, and this is something that happens to many people who go down a spiritual path. Eventually, they are given an opportunity to acknowledge and integrate and work with the dark side of the nature of reality that we have all been repressing for so long. And some people, when given this opportunity, will run from it and will flee to Christianity and will renounce whatever they were doing and all this other stuff. And some people will learn from it. And some people will end up finding more balance, will end up feeling more light, will end up becoming more in alignment with their authentic version of themselves because they are no longer repressing a whole facet of reality within themselves and the world around them.